Welcome to Spotlight ETSU. I'm your host, Carrie Oliveira. Today we'll be speaking with Dr. Amber Kinser, a noted writer, speaker, and blogger on feminism and motherhood. Dr. Kinser, also known as Dr. Mama, has published 2 books on motherhood and has spoken across the country to classrooms and professional organizations about gender and communication. She's currently the chair of the Department of Communication at ETSU. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Kinser.
Thank you for having me.
We're delighted to have you here. Why don't you tell us something about how you came to be at ETSU?
Well, I finished my doctorate at Purdue, and I was looking everywhere for a job. And I wanted to be near my family, sort of, you know,
Not
within
too
a half day's
terribly
drive,
close, right?
yes, not down the street. And so they had this position in my area. They needed somebody who did gender, among other things, and so I applied and I got it. So I was looking for something around the Carolinas, Tennessee area.
How long have you been here?
14 years or 15
You kind of lost track somewhere along the way.
I don't know.
And you've been in the Department of Communication the entire time that you've been here?
I've been in the Department of Communication, right, and then for 10 years I directed the Women's Studies program from 2000 to 2010, and then I became department chair.
How is it that you ended up directing the Women's Studies program?
Well, when I got here, I was just interested on the committee to support what was then a small minor, and then just sort of started adopting more leadership roles and co-chairing that committee, and then developed a proposal to bring it into the communication department, and it just sort of started growing. It just became a love of mine, so I developed it. That love and worked with other faculty and developed the major, and it grew.
I remember when you became chair of the Department of Communication, and part of the choice you made in that was to kind of give up directing the Women's Studies program, and I always thought, oh my God, I can't believe that she's doing that. Did
that
you
was
feel like
very
you were losing
difficult.
something?
I did, but I was wanting some new and different challenges, and I felt like I had given to that program what I had to give it. Sort of all of my ideas for that program got used up. Yeah. Right. So I needed a new program, and it was ready for something. I've done it for 10 years, and it's good to have leadership change. And so it needed a new person, I think, and I had an opportunity to learn some new leadership qualities. So we have a major now. It used to just be a minor. Now it's a major in Women's Studies, and it's interdisciplinary. That's right.
And so it's built from courses across the campus in different departments. And so what kinds of departments share their responsibility in contributing to the Women's Studies program?
Well, history, sociology and anthropology, social work, communication, English, philosophy. I mean, it really
Everybody
is
who studies
truly interdisciplinary.
Humans. That's cool.
Yeah.
And so why did we have a need for a Women's Studies program? What is its primary objective? And I'm going to segue this into your focus in gender studies and feminism.
The body of academic literature and areas of academic inquiry have historically been very focused on men's lives.
Yes.
So if you look, at history, you will find lots of books about men's lives, as if only men were existing at that time, and as if the activities in which women were engaged were not relevant, and as if women were not engaged in the same activities as men were, right? So not just focusing on war and conquest, but also focusing on the men in war and conquest, because women have been warriors,
forever,
from the beginning of time, but they are sort of written out of that. And so one of the purposes.
I love that you use the word warrior. It's such a powerful word. I love that word.
Yes, right. But we don't think of really women as warriors, and sometimes they had to do it underground and disguised as men and that sort of thing. So one of the purposes of women's studies is to write women back into areas of
the narrative of human
inquiry.
history, kind of a thing. And so now we have a program that is designed to do that.
Right.
And your interest, academically and in your research, is about the numerous experiences of being a woman. And particularly motherhood.
Right.
How does it?
Well, my area in my doctoral work was in family communication, and so within family communication, it became more specifically about motherhood.
And why did you decide to focus on mothers?
Well, I really just decided to focus on me.
Right.
Initially.
Which is, I think, what a lot of researchers do ultimately.
Yes, right. Because when I was working on my doctorate, I was pregnant, and I was taking a class on friendship. And so I started noticing how my friendships were shifting as my pregnancy grew. And so then I started I went to the literature. I thought, I think I'm going to write about friendship during pregnancy, and let me go find out all this literature about what's been done on that. Ooh, nothing. Right. All right, well, let me just find out what's been done about pregnant experience more broadly then, and I'll use that. Nothing.
You're
I mean,
kidding.
Really, almost nothing. Most of the work was about gestation.
Yes,
and the
medical
baby,
side of being
and
pregnant.
the medical side, and not really about women's phenomenological experience of pregnancy. So
Which if you
that's
talk
when
to
I started.
women in conversation who have been pregnant, who are pregnant, it is a profound experience to
That's
be
right.
in a pregnant body.
That's right,
and
but
your
they're not
identity
considered the
changes.
experts on pregnancy,
Hilariously
interestingly enough. And so what we go to are the experts, medical experts.
Right.
And so what I tried to do with my work was try to center women as experts about, guess what, women's lives. And my dissertation
Novel.
was about women talking about pregnancy, and so then I wasn't pregnant anymore, and then I had a child, and so then I just started thinking, I wonder what else isn't written about. So I guess that's really sort of where it started, and I just kept focusing on that.
Is there a noteworthy body of research pertaining to the business of mothering?
There is now.
There is now.
Yeah,
This is a recent development?
This is a recent development, probably in the last 10 years, maybe 15, but particularly in the last 10 years. The Association for Research on Mothering came out of York University in Canada, in Toronto, and now it's the Motherhood Initiative. But that research locus was really important in creating a whole body internationally
Right.
of motherhood research. And Demeter Press is a press that's devoted exclusively to research about motherhood.
And you've been researching motherhood for like basically as long as the discipline that subfield
Yeah,
has
I guess
existed.
so.
So you're kind of
I guess so.
probably a big deal.
Well, I don't think so. A small deal, but in a really important area.
And so what specifically about motherhood? I know that the most recent thing that you've been working on is sort of the business of family dinners and
Right.
place of a motherhood. And I know that I find this, I'm not a mother. I have no particular aspirations really to be a mother, but I have great appreciation for the mothers who are in my life, particularly my own. And one of the things that you talk about, sort of in the context, you're the chair of my department, of course, so just for viewers, Dr. Kinser is my chair. And so you talk a lot about the work that is in balancing your identity, a person as a mother, and the time that you have to devote to that, as well as separating yourself from that and being a chair or an academic or doing your job, and that your identity has to shift and flux, and sometimes you're both, and you can't be both, and you can't be neither, and how do you manage all of that, and how do women manage that?
I faked my way through it. Well, I mean, I think it's difficult because you sort of get into this, if you're a professional or a career person, or even just at a regular, at a maybe not particularly career-focused job, you're getting into the job groove, and then you get a phone call about a sick child, or a child saying, I left my track shoes at home.
I left my PBJ.
And so then, you've got to problem solve, or you get pulled into mom mode, or you get an email now. You didn't used to get those, but you get an email from an instructor saying, we need to talk about whatever it is we need to talk about, or school is being let out because there's a snow day, and so now you've got this meeting with the vice president, and you have to get your kids out of school. So it's a very tricky thing, and I don't know the answer to how I navigate it. I think I just I prioritize what needs to be prioritized at a given time. Sometimes that's work, and sometimes it isn't.
Right.
Sometimes it's family. So I guess one of the things I tried to do was be a mother without apology at work.
Yes.
And so not to try to push that underground, and to make choices about whether the kids are there or whether they are not there, and I can't because I have to take care of this family thing, and just being very bold and unapologetic about that. But I'm in an environment that it supports that.
Conducive to that.
Yeah, and for all of its, critiques that we might be able to give it about it not being particularly child-friendly and, highbrow intellectual and that sort of thing.
Relatively speaking.
Relative to other careers, it's very friendly to that. So it's easy for me to say I do it without apology. I mean, there are plenty of mothers who would love to do that if they had a different work environment.
The logistics
so I'm very
were,
fortunate.
Yes. Do you find that to be the case of women's reports of motherhood in the literature? Is this a theme that we see, that women struggle with trying to figure out whether they're mother or a career person.
Well, interestingly, we have a cultural narrative that says motherhood is the most important job in the world.
It's uncompensated.
But that's just an empty narrative.
Right.
Right? Because we don't really have that backed in social policy or perceptions of the importance. Because if it were the most important job in the world, then if a mother had to leave to go to the school for whatever, pick up a sick kid or go to the third grade program or whatever,
right,
then they would be able to do that, more boldly.
Right.
And they have to pretend or feel compelled to pretend like it's something else. Interestingly, we find that when men engage in those same activities, they tend to get sort of extra credit.
Yes.
Oh, how nice, he's going to see his third grade program instead of working. How endearing
and it makes him
warm
attractive.
is that? And it makes him attractive, right? One of the examples I give is, women. I've heard women talk often about seeing a guy at the mall with a stroller strolling along, and they, find that so endearing and warm and lovely, and extra credit sort of points. Meanwhile, to see him across the mall, they had to look past and through 15 other moms who were there with strollers all the time. Right? Yes. So we just sort of get attuned to it differently, I think.
Yes. So getting back to this business about you being kind of a big deal in motherhood research.
Yeah.
You have a couple of books.
I do.
That we can talk about if we could. So what are the titles of these books?
Mothering in the Third Wave is an anthology, so I was the editor of that book, and that is really a collection of essays written by feminist writers who blended together their personal narrative mothering experience with feminist theory.
Right.
So it was a nice blend of here's my experience and now here's a theoretical grounding for it. And it was really talking about what motherhood is like in an era of third wave feminism, which is a whole other thing to talk about. That's quite large. But it wasn't really a third wave feminist book because I never was able to quite articulate to my own satisfaction what that means exactly.
Right.
But it's written with third wave sensibilities, and what that means is that it recognizes and embraces contradiction and messiness and complexity and the ways in which feminists are acting in a post-feminist era, in quotes, which is identified by lots as we don't have a need for feminism anymore, which is absurd. So we're not in a post-feminist era, but we are doing feminism in an environment where post-feminist which is perceived to be post-feminist.
Yes.
So there's this post-feminist language of, feminism is so passé, and why are we still doing that? And women are equal in the world. What are you even talking about? And so trying to live a feminist life and engage in feminist mothering practices, in the wake of that discourse, that feminism is outdated and unnecessary. That's
very interesting. So that's Mothering in the Third Wave.
That's Mothering in the Third Wave, and that's a collection of essays, and I have 2 essays in there. And then the other book is Motherhood and Feminism, and that's a historical accounting of mother activism in the United States for the last 200 years.
So mothers as activists,
right,
for motherhood or in a variety of contexts?
That's a good question. Sometimes women activists on behalf of motherhood, sometimes they identify as feminists and sometimes not. Sometimes it's mothers advocating for change on behalf of children.
Right.
So really, and also a lot of it is reproductive rights and women having the right to be able to choose to have or not have children ever.
Right.
Or to have them, or when to have them, or how many to have.
Right.
All
just
of that.
Control over reproductive. What?
Right.
Your business.
Outcomes, sure. Your reproductive business.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I have a friend who I went to PhD school with, and she has a special needs son, and she spends a lot of time blogging about her experience as she never calls herself an activist, but she has to advocate staunchly on behalf of her.
Advocate.
She is, absolutely. And so she has to advocate to receive things from the system to benefit her special needs son that the system is supposed to be affording her.
That's right.
Sort of automatically, and she has to be an activist and be an advocate inside of a system that's supposed to provide affordance.
That's right.
Anyway,
that's right.
Which I find phenomenally frustrating on her behalf.
Right.
And I feel like this is sort of a thing that is normal And it happens, and it's commonplace.
Yes, and a whole sort of body of mothers advocating on behalf of special needs children. A really important nexus for activism work,
Yes.
even though they may not think of it, in that
As
way.
activism necessarily, but I mean, if you're creating social change from that.
Right, and we see lots of focus on that in the motherhood literature about living as a mother of a special needs child, working to advocate that my child has access to what children who are not special needs have access to.
Yes.
Take for granted. And
Equality.
right.
Right? And so I have two questions, kind of one about this business of activism and social change and how the courses that you teach on this campus, and also kind of feminism more broadly. So
Okay.
I'm going to start with the courses that you teach.
Okay.
And so you teach, I hate that I can't take your classes.
Oh, how right.
Because I'm usually teaching my own.
Right.
So you teach Speaking for Social Change.
Right.
And what is the goal of that course? Students ask that question a lot. Even students who are not majors in our program are like, I've seen this on the books and I don't know what it is. And I do my best to characterize it, but since I'm sitting here with you.
Right. Well, one of the goals is to give students experience outside of the kind of forced model that we sort of have to use in the classroom. Right. In almost every public speaking situation, once you leave school,
yes,
you're not going to have 25 captive audience members who don't really know anything about your topic.
Totally uninformed.
Who didn't choose to come there, who don't necessarily know that they have something to learn there, who are sort of made to listen and keep track of what you're saying. So I mean, it's a way that we have to teach it, but it's and so that's not the problem, but it's to offer a broader range of kinds of public address experiences. That's one thing. To develop advanced public speaking skills is another thing, and that's part of it. And then also to channel those advanced public speaking skills and experiences into advocating for some kind of social shift.
And what kinds of advocacy speeches have your students in previous semesters?
Oh my gosh, I hope I can remember some of these. Yes, well they've worked with people who are transitioning off of welfare and into independent, more independent, self-sustaining living. They've advocated on behalf of animal rights. They've dealt with issues of mountaintop removal.
Yes. All kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Of course, they're going to be out there, and they're going to be annoyed that I can't remember.
What's great about that is that they pick the things that they care about, and I imagine that the most effective activism comes out of a sincere concern about something.
And one of the tricky things about that class is they have to go find a thing, an issue that they care about, go create a venue, go gather an audience, and see, they don't have to do any of that in the basic public speaking classes, right? Because all that's done.
Right.
I mean, they have to come up with a topic, but on their own. But they don't. It's not necessarily about social change and making the world a better place.
Yes.
It could be a variety of other things. So they have to go find an audience.
And of course,
when they first start the class, they're like paralyzed with
terror.
How do I
do this?
And I say,
work it out, man.
Work it out, because that's
part of the
you're not going to be able to make a difference, right? Is that there aren't audiences sitting around waiting for you. You have to go find a place that could use you, and now gather people together and
make it known that you have something to teach them.
And make it known that you have something to teach them. And one of the things I try to focus on in that class is respect for audience. I mean, really respect with the multiple perspectives that they come there with. What does it mean that people have gathered for you?
Yes.
What do you owe people who are willing to give you?
There's an honor.
20 minutes. There is.
In that.
there is an honor, and
you have to honor
you should
them in
have.
return.
That's right. You should have enough. Be a person of character enough, and have the honor to as I say, convince your audience to give themselves over to your intellectual care.
Yes.
That you're going to take care of them, and you have to prepare, and you have to be serious, and you have to have been practiced, and you have to be able to back up what you're going to say. You have to have thought about the background of your audience and how they might hear the kinds of things that you're saying, and how to, craft the way that you say it so that it it works for particular audiences and is respectful of them. So those are some of the things that we do in that class.
Marvelously important. And even whether or not you're intending to spend your life doing any kind of activism or social change or whatever else, I imagine just that orientation towards the respect of an audience is something that students need to appreciate.
And also you don't have to be carrying a sign to make a difference. You really could talk to 5 people at Starbucks, which is what some of them did.
Right.
To make a difference. And one of the things I think that they were struck by when I talked with them after the class was there's so much that needs to be done. It's everywhere, even in small pockets. And
small change matters.
And small change matters, yes.
It'll accumulate.
What is it? Margaret Mead says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
Indeed.
I mean, just small changes makes all the difference.
And willingness and having ability. So it's a good thing that you're
right. And also, part of the thing that they learn too is you do have it. You do have what it takes to make the change.
Yes.
You do. You have the skill. You have to do some background work. You can't just go flying in there, but you don't need to be president of something or the recognized leader on somebody's webpage or something in order to make a difference.
I mean, that's the whole thing of a grassroots sort of a thing, right? Just human beings existing in their universe, doing what they do and trying to make a change.
That's right. And you know stuff, or you could come to know stuff because you're educated.
Yes.
So you know how to acquire information and knowledge, and there are people who don't know how to acquire it, who don't have access to it, and you could share that with them or find out what they need and work at providing that for them.
Yes. So cool.
Yeah.
And you also teach family communication.
I teach family communication.
You're doing that
in the fall. I haven't taught that in a while, so I'm kind of excited about that.
And what's that? That course doesn't just, of course, focus on mothers necessarily.
No. That's about larger family communication patterns and how they create realities and identities. And one of the things that students are nervous about when they get in there is, everybody thinks their family is so crazy, right? And then by the end of the class, mostly they're going, oh, actually this person's family is crazy, but my family's actually pretty
functioning,
good. It's functioning. I mean, we don't do this well and we don't do that well. Maybe I could make a difference in that now that I know this, but we're actually doing okay, or I understand how we get caught into these patterns, and importantly, I understand the role that I played in perpetuating these patterns that I despise. So is there something I could do differently? Is there a statement I could make? Could I make requests of my family that we do more of this or less of that?
Something else. Yes. When I took family communication as a graduate student, we handled it from a system standpoint. That is, right. So the family is an organism affected by all of the individual cells, individuals in the organism. You change one, you now have potential to change the entire system.
That's right.
Which I think is a very empowering, at least for me as a student, it was a very empowering notion to find that, I am a component in the system, and if I am different, the system is different.
Yes, it is.
And that made a huge difference, especially in conflict management in my own family.
Right,
so
that's right.
That was
and it also helps people to see why this thing that changed on that side of the family system, this person became unemployed or graduated or didn't graduate or was arrested or something like that, and how that influences the whole rest of the family.
Yes.
The whole system is thrown off.
Yes.
If you change an element of the system. I mean, if you have a rock in your shoe, your whole body is thrown off.
Yes.
You could have a backache, you can have a headache, you can't make it through the day, you're aggravated, it throws.
And then you express that to other people.
That's right.
It's another rock in your shoe is affecting something outside of yourself even.
That's right. So to say, well, it's just my heel, or why does this paper cut hurt me? Well, it's affecting the bodily system, and the family system is like that. And so small change needs to be attended to.
Yes.
Because it affects larger parts of the family. So those are the things we focus on in there. And they do a lot of that is you're analyzing your family. And so it's kind of engaging just anyway.
Yes.
I mean, the material is just familiar and engaging, and
you see yourself in all of it.
That's right.
Kind of a thing. I had that same experience with my interpersonal students. They're like, oh, that's my relationship suddenly is now making sense. It's making sense why it didn't make sense.
Yeah. So then you will say, we're going to study this theory. Now apply this theory to you.
You're like,
your family. Instead of just keeping it at the theoretical level or memorization level, now they're going to, what does this theory allow you to see in your own family experience?
Working to make the material meaningful to them.
Right.
So I'm sure students appreciate that in general.
So that's in the fall.
That's fall.
Yeah.
That's cool. People should sign up for that one.
Yes, please.
They will.
Sign up for it.
Please. And then, is there anything else that you customarily teach?
Well, I teach gender and communication, but I haven't taught that in a while because as chair, I don't teach as many classes. So I'm only teaching, one a semester. So I have to sort of spread them out. And I teach graduate level qualitative methods classes.
Yes.
Class.
The one. We have
right.
one. Well, that's exciting.
That's about it.
So
these days,
everything that you do academically, I think in your life also is driven by feminism.
I think so.
You try very hard to live a feminist life. And I don't know if everybody understands what that means. I think there's a sort of a, maybe you can dispel. I know it's a huge thing to ask what is feminism ultimately.
Right.
But I feel like there are a lot of really negative stereotypes attached to feminism, that feminists are angry and they hate men and whatever else. And that kills me because it's completely wrong.
Right.
And I would love for you to have this opportunity to talk to folks about what feminism actually is, so that we can walk around in this world.
Well, feminism is a million things, so I won't be able to answer that question.
Clearly.
Because it's different things to different people. It's culture bound. How it gets lived out and embodied and understood is bound by culture. Lots of people are doing advocacy work and social change work that I would call feminism, that they don't want to call feminism because it's the F word and it has sort of a negative, cultural connotation.
Right.
So it's really hard to nail that down. So all I can tell you is what feminism is, how I understand feminism.
Please do.
And I guess part of it is the recognition that women are people first.
Yes.
Before they're other things, before they're somebody's mom or somebody's partner or somebody's sexual object. They are people first. So that's the first part. And then the second part is the recognition that this remains a radical idea.
That I was just gonna, I'm sort of perplexed really that you would have to communicate the fact that a woman is a person before she's anything else.
Right.
It's sort of,
well,
as a woman, it's my fundamental nature. I'm a human being more than anything else. And so.
But women tend to be viewed in terms of these other roles relative to other people.
Right.
So men tend to have access to identity qua identity.
Yeah.
I am who I am, who I am.
Right.
And then secondarily to that, I am a business owner. Maybe I'm a dad. Maybe I'm a lover. Maybe whatever.
Right.
But women tend to be identified in terms of their relationship to others first, always recognized in terms of who they are for other people. And so for me, feminism is to try to redirect our gaze away from who they are to other people to who they are as themselves.
Yes.
And then, of course, part of who they are as themselves is
relative to other people.
Relative to other people,
right.
But that they are people first. And so then for me, feminism is recognizing also that that's still a radical idea.
Yes.
So it's not enough for me to say, no, women are people because they are, and then now we're done. It's to say, but that's still radical, so you still have to work
convince people that is the case.
That.
And so when you talk about like living a feminist life or trying to mothering as a feminist, so is this basically, so if you're mothering as a feminist, does that mean you're teaching your children to see women more as people than anything else? Or
well, sometimes people think of it in terms of feminist mothering in a way that is feminist, bringing up children to be
values,
feminist,
right?
Teaching children about issues of equity, that sort of thing, raising them up equally. And so that's part of it, but it's not just about the children, right?
Yes.
So I'm always trying to redirect the gaze to the mother qua mother, to the woman qua woman. So wanting us to focus on I've lost my thought, on mother's experience.
Right, so we were talking about what it means to mother as a feminist.
Right, okay, so it's not just about the children, how we raise the children, but also about seeing myself as a woman who is entitled to my own identity, with complex feelings about my children, about my career,
and that I don't
about
have
my
to
family.
be construed entirely as a person who is a mother to children.
That's right. And wanting some time away from my children is reasonable and fair.
Yes.
Wanting time away from people is what people do.
Yes.
And that's reasonable and fair, even for moms, to be both very much loving your children and very frustrated with them is part of human relationships.
I could talk to you forever, but we've run out of time.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kinser, for joining us. We've been speaking today with Dr. Amber Kinser about her research on motherhood and feminism. Join us next time on Spotlight ETSU.